Nation Radio.
Okay, welcome back to Herp Nation Live. We are at the National Reptile Breeders Expo in Daytona. Of course, the legendary expo, as I like to call it, it is. And at this show, you really run into the who's who. And I have to say, Ray, I'm joined now by Ray Hunter, Cobraman. Ray, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
You know, this is the kind of show where you're going to run into somebody like you who's got an interesting story to tell, and involving venom. And a pretty controversial subject of self-immunization.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of graze into that. I want to say real quick, right out of the gate here, that Ray is going to do an article for the magazine. That ought to push some buttons, huh?
Correct, yes.
But we're at some point down the road, we're gonna. We've been talking for a while about how to do an article and to do it Herp Nation style, big, comprehensive, something thoughtful. You know, that gets into a lot of different areas and very comprehensive. So we'll let the article tell that story.
Right, something more scientific than freakish.
Something more than scientific and freakish. And let's kind of graze into that a little bit. And really, for people who do not know your story, if you could, best you could, I know you've got a long story to tell. Tell us your story about how you got into venomous, which led to the self-immunization topic. How did all that happen?
Well, years ago, I developed an interest in venomous snakes. I used to live in Homestead, Florida, and that was the location of the original Miami Serpentarium. And
Ray's phone's ringing, because I'm sure you get a lot of calls all the time.
Yeah, and I met Bill Haas down at Miami Serpentarium. I was intrigued with his work. Years later, I started doing a little bit of venom production on my own on a small scale, and that developed into more and more snakes. And I figured, after my first venomous bite, I figured I would give the self-immunization a go and see how that worked out. And it's worked good so far. It's not for everybody. I don't think, I think people that handle a large amount of snakes for a good reason, you know, obviously stand a higher chance of getting bit, but small collectors probably don't need to self-immunize. It's not something I condone. There's a lot of inherent risk to it, and one of the biggest risks that I suffer is complacency. It does add to your complacency, so.
Sure. And it is, in fact, to be clear here, you know, this isn't something average Joe, as you call them. You don't need to be getting into doing this. This is something, you have a medical background yourself.
Correct,
too.
yes.
Explain that to people so they kind of get some context, where you didn't just start doing this. And there are some people I know that don't have your background, but tell us, give us a bit of a resume if you would.
Absolutely. You know, I have a doctorate actually in herpetology. I also worked while I was going to college. I worked as a police officer, and then later as a paramedic. I have X-ray. I'm licensed X-ray, a lab technician, a bunch of different medical certificates. And even with those, I've made some fundamental mistakes in mixing venoms and dosage and administration that could lead to a big problem.
Sure.
So it's not just for everybody to just go out there and milk a snake and just start injecting venom into themselves. It's not that simple. And I should mention one other potentially serious side effect of self-immunizing is developing hypersensitivity to venom. You can self-immunize for a while, and all of a sudden your body becomes sensitive to it, and your next shot could put you into anaphylaxis. Certainly your next bite you could suffer from anaphylaxis, and that's certainly more deadly than the snake bite itself.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to reading about all of that, and we'll save that for the article.
Correct.
And we'll get into some details there, but I wanted to tease that forward. But you know, I want to ask you about your first moment with herps, and I don't know if you were a kid or if you were adult. Whenever that was, it doesn't matter. What was the driving force that made you go, oh my gosh, this is it for me. I love this, whether it's, in your case, venomous or not. Would you want to share that with us?
Sure. I was a young kid. I think I was around 7. Again, we lived in Homestead, Miami. We had 2.5 acres of of property which were filled with Australian pines, which is a favorite habitat for many different snakes down there. And I would find snakes all over, mostly harmless, rat snakes. We had a lot of indigos and stuff of that sort, but we had the occasional coral snake and rattlesnake, which I wasn't allowed to have, but I was intrigued with them, and I never actually kept snakes as a collector until I actually went off to college. Went up and worked in the Gainesville area as a police officer, and was going to college. That my first snake, and I'm sure you hear this a lot, was actually a ball python, because you can't have rattlesnakes, in a lot of settings and stuff like that. So, but then when I got away from that scene and lived off on my own, my first cobra, I think one of my first venomous snakes was a 7-foot forest cobra that Bill Haas donated to me. So I was really proud of that snake because of who it came from.
Yeah, I know you had a special relationship with Bill.
Yeah.
Had an impact in your life. Tell me what Bill meant to you and how he impacted your life.
Well, he was certainly the pioneer of snake venoms in terms of being used in the medical community, and the development and making of antivenoms. He was like the sole supplier of venoms to Wyeth Labs that used to make the antivenom. Now it's Pfizer. He did a lot of work. He did some work with polio. He's done a lot of work using venoms, a lot that he's not even been credited for. Some of it was shut down, by government agencies and stuff like that for various reasons. But the guy was just a genius with snakes and their venoms, and I just have a great respect for him. He's greatly missed.
Yeah, and Bill lived to be quite a long
over 100.
life.
I remember when I worked with him, he told me one day in the lab that his goal is to reach 100 years old, and he did that with 6 months.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, he was phenomenal. He was definitely one of a kind man.
Yeah. His approach was he did a lot of the public demonstrations, which from a philosophy standpoint, I agree with. I think that stuff matters. Some people have problems with the putting on the shows with alligators, whatever. But if it's done right, like how Bill did it, I would suggest, it makes an impact on people. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it dispels a lot of fear when you can get up close and personal and see that these snakes are not monsters that are going to chase you down and attack you. Bill would, almost every single show, he would intentionally drop a snake.
Right.
And mostly to get the oohs and ahs from the audience, but it was also to show that these things are going to go away from him. He would drop a cobra, and the cobra would try and get away from him, and it would show the public that these things are not out to kill you.
Yeah.
They just want to be left alone, and they will go the other way. And he would end up having to, grab it.
Sure, yeah.
There was always a barrier between that and the audience, but it was really to get the oohs and ahs and to show that these snakes are not going to chase you down. They go the other way.
And that's a clear difference between sensationalism for the sake of sensationalism,
right,
versus a little drama to create a point.
Right.
And that's what
it made the show fun,
It
too.
made it fun.
Yeah.
And, you have to do that to a certain demographic of people who aren't us, especially reptiles. You got to give them a little shock. But if you bring it home with something cool, like you're saying, those points right there in particular, then you've done it the right way. So I appreciate you talking about Bill. Well, I'll let you get back to the show here and walk around. I appreciate you coming on.
Real quick, an honor.
Anybody who you may want to contact you for any purpose at all, is that Facebook, that kind of thing? Can people find you? Or
you can find me on Facebook. It's under Cobraman Ray Hunter is my screen name for Facebook. I am also I have a website which is www.cobraman.net. If you Google Ray Hunter, you'll find me very easily. My company is Hunter Serpentology, LLC, so you can Google that as well. But that's linked to my website.
Yeah.
So I'm very accessible.
Well, great. And with Herp Nation magazine, my personal goal as the executive editor is to have one venomous topic in each issue. We have done a venomous issue. We're going to do another one all venomous. But separate from that, I really am striving to keep one venomous topic, of whether it's a keeper or research or whatever. So any of your venomous friends that might hear this in that community, and I'm getting to know a lot more, please contact me. And if you want to be a part of this, we do it right. And
there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there. A lot of my friends are very knowledgeable, and I think they'd be happy to contribute.
Yeah. So, and I'm meeting a lot more of them as time goes on. So I'm really proud to be able to serve that community in a way that does them right, quite frankly. So, hey, Ray, thanks for coming on. And okay, we're going to be right back here on Herp Nation Live at the National Reptile Breeders Expo in Daytona, Florida.